Watching us, please wear white for the next 3 hours as a tribute to Roger Federer. Hey, at 2 minutes after the hour, we've got a huge show coming your way. Let's begin here. The Congressional Budget Office will not be releasing their revised score on the GOP health care bill as planned today.
Senate Republicans now delaying their fight to repeal and replace Obamacare as Senator John McCain is recovering from eye surgery.
Griff Jenkins is down in our nation's capital with the very latest on this. Griff, we thought we'd get a score today. We thought we'd have a vote this week. Now it's all on ice.
Well, you're not going to get it, Steve Ainsley and Brian. Good morning. That highly anticipated CBO score was expected, now delayed, as Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has delayed the vote on the revised health care bill, while Senator John McCain recovers from blood clot surgery above his left eye. The Budget Office's score on the first bill predicted that 22 million fewer Americans would have coverage by 2026, but Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price says those numbers can't be trusted.
CBO doesn't even capture those individuals who say to the federal government, I don't want the plan that you think I need. I want the plan that I know I need for myself and for my family. So those numbers are so flawed in terms of what actually happens in the real world.
And a handful of Republicans are still holding out as GOP leaders scramble for votes. One of those holdouts, Senator Rand Paul, had this warning about the current form of the bill.
This bill keeps most of the Obamacare taxes, keeps most of the regulations, keeps most of the subsidies, and creates something that Republicans have never been for. That's a giant insurance bailout super fund. The one thing we should do is try to repeal as many of the taxes, as many of the regulations, and as many of the mandates as we possibly can.
So, score aside, they delayed the vote because they need Senator McCain's vote, and we don't know. There's no timeline for his return from the surgery. And since you guys started talking about age, Senator McCain is 80 years old.
Right, and they did say today in the New York Times that they fear it's more serious than they originally thought.
Right, because
thanks, Griff.
Because many people up on Capitol Hill would say, well, you know, he's planning on being back next week. But this particular thing where you take it's a thing where they actually open the skull a little bit. It's called craniotomy. Recovery is generally expressed in weeks and not a week. So it could be a little longer than that. And we haven't even heard the prognosis of what was going on there.
Well, we know that they're going to be there for the first 2 weeks of August because we know that they're going to work through part of their August recess. The last time there was a break, though, in June, do you remember they delayed the vote in June, too? Senator Ted Cruz got on board. So I'm curious to find out over the next few weeks if they rewrite it and they fix it and they make everyone happy, maybe a few more will come on board.
Well, they got a couple more weeks of work, which is really a 2-day work week. If you figure about it, they have a travel day, they go home on weekends, they leave on Thursdays.
It's exhausting.
So they go back and forth. So they got a couple more weeks to work and try to work it out. Now, I'm just wondering, in the big picture, if they knew they were going to keep the taxes, if they knew they were going to add opioid use, if they knew they were going to, in many cases, extend Medicaid, why didn't they just talk to Democrats? That's exactly the type of deal-making you make if you're going to be dealing with Democrats.
Because they'll never work, Democrats won't work with the Republicans.
I'm just saying, these are a lot of things that you give and take.
Not going to happen, though.
If you were dealing with the Joe Manchins of the world and the John Testers, who tend to be very reasonable.
Right, and because they've got those things, the taxes, the regulation, that insurance subsidy in there, it's kind of like, wait a minute, those are things Democrats like. Republicans, who they need a lot of them, those are the people who have said they would never support them. Senator John Cornyn, he says, look, we're going to have to do this all by ourselves. Ultimately, it was easier being the party of no than the party of we know how to fix this. Watch.
Health care is hard, and we know that, but we have no choice to try to come to the rescue of the millions of people who are being failed as a result of the problems with Obamacare. And yes, unfortunately, it's become a partisan issue, and our Democratic friends are refusing to lift a finger to help their very constituents who are being hurt.
Because they came back and said not a Republican helped them. But in the big picture, I'm just wondering if it would really benefit the president, who's this charismatic speaker who can really rally a crowd together, if he wants to go out there and go to West Virginia. He loves this stuff. Go to West Virginia. Go to Kentucky. You know, go to the states where the senators are on, maybe to Maine. The governor and the president get along great. Go up there and just don't, without being personally going after the senators, saying this is what we have. This is what we have. These are some of the principles to play. No one seems to be selling selling it. They just wanted to see the votes go forward.
Or what
on
about
it.
just sitting down with Senator Rand Paul and Senator Collins?
He's called them a bunch of times.
Because those are the two holdouts.
Calls them every day.
The Republicans need 50 votes in the Senate. Then the vice president would be the tiebreaker.
Right.
But the two that are against it are Rand Paul and Susan Collins. And Senator McCain has expressed some concerns about it, too. So I don't even know if
There are
when
a
he
bunch
comes
of
back,
people.
if he'll even vote for
I
it.
think he had about eight that we just
They're on
don't
the
know how they're
fence.
going to vote.
Rand Paul said that he didn't think that Mitch McConnell had the votes. Lindsey Graham said over the weekend, the bill is not like fine wine. It does not get better with age. And the longer they wait, the more peril the bill would be in. Anyway, the messaging this week from the White House is not going to be about health care because this is Made in America week. It's going to be a 3-week campaign. It kicks off officially today, focusing on all sorts of things that are built in the United States of America.
This week, Made in America products. Some of those products are going to be all over the White House, the South Lawn, so the president can go out there and see some of these products that represent one product from all 50 states. And then next week is America Heroes Week, focusing on jobs in America. And the third week is the American Dream Week.
Great. Here's what Donald Trump, President of the United States, tweeted out yesterday, heading back to Washington, D.C. This is after his trip to Bedminster. Much will be accomplished this week on trade, the military, and security as well.
So everybody, the big theme over the weekend was, well, the administration has been so consumed with this Russia situation that they have not been pushing their agenda forward. But if you look at what's happening in business, if you look at what's happening the way everyone's responding with the lack of regulations, while there hasn't been a major piece of legislation, there's a lot that is going forward, and there's signs the economy's ready to wake up if Washington would get the heck out of the way and do something, including redoing the trade deals, what the president could be doing. Michael Caputo was one of the first people to get on board the Trump train when he was even thinking about running for president. He was called in front of Congress last week to talk about any type of Russian connection, and here's what he said.
I think they're doing it. I think they've separated the crisis out into an outside unit. I think that's extremely important. We saw that in previous presidencies, that it works. We have to get the wheels rolling so that it works well, but I think they're on their way. I now advise CEOs and business leaders. I have been for many years, and I can tell you the CEOs that I talk to are very pleased with the agenda the president is pursuing on regulatory reform, for example, on energy. He's been extremely successful on natural gas development, even talking about exporting them overseas.
Absolutely. Now, keep in mind, so we're back to theme weeks. They've had energy theme week. They had technology. Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately for the White House, it was all that stuff came out at times when they should have been pushing health care. And there was a lot of discussion behind the scenes on what they should be doing. Now, what they feel is if they push Made in America, that's going to perfectly ramp up tax reform, which is something that the president is very animated.
Probably smart, because a lot of people went to the polls to vote for that theme, Make America Great Again, American jobs, pushing businesses here so that the money stays within in our own country. I think it's pretty smart of them to do it. Newt Gingrich over the weekend was saying that the White House is still learning, the communications team is still learning. They're trying to use that influence, and maybe they should have been talking about health care, but now they're trying to get on track by
they've been on the defensive because everybody involved in the campaign has to come clean on any type of ties with Russia. Got to give it to John Dowd and Ty Cobb, and every time the president or anybody else is asked, just say, we got our own legal team dealing with that, they'll handle it, and then just be very focused on pushing your economic and military agenda, because we know what's happening in Iraq right now. If we don't act soon, we're going to turn it right over to Iran, North Korea, as well as our economy. Leave the Russia to the bulldog lawyers you hired, and just go ahead.
All right, one of the CEOs, Alltech, that big company down in Birmingham, Alabama, they provide products to the electric utility market, telecommunications, tree care, lights and signs. Brian's going to be interviewing him in the next segment.
All right.
He's going to the White House today.
He will be. All right. In the meantime, let's go on over. Jillian's got some headlines made in America.
That's right. Good Monday morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's get straight to a Fox News alert right now. The desperate search intensifying this morning for a missing man after a deadly flash flood swept away a family in Arizona. 9 bodies, including 6 children, recovered at this hour, the youngest just 2 years old. Authorities say 14 people were at a swimming hole when 6 feet high waters from heavy rainfall rushed down out of nowhere.
The guy holding his daughter, a little maybe 1-year-old, and he was stuck in this branch and there was just water going all around him. It was something like, you see in a movie.
4 people were rescued and are expected to be okay. Also breaking right now, justice for 3 American heroes killed on their own airbase overseas. A Jordanian soldier sentenced to life in prison with hard labor for opening fire on Staff Sergeant Kevin McEnroe, Staff Sergeant Matthew Llewellyn, and Staff Sergeant James Moriarty. The 3 deployed to train Jordanian troops in the fight against ISIS. Now, families of the slain soldiers are in the courtroom as the judge announced the ruling. And officials now investigating after someone broke into a Republican senator's office and left a threatening note. Nevada Senator Dean Heller has recently been in the national spotlight, considered a possible swing vote on health care. Heller reportedly on the fence about the GOP's replacement plan. Las Vegas police are not giving details on what that note said. So look at your headlines on this Monday, guys. Keep you posted on these stories.
Okay,
Thank you.
Jillian, thank you. All right, still ahead on this Monday, President Trump's attorney calling out the mainstream media, telling them they've got the Donald Trump Jr. story all wrong.
The meeting and what took place at the meeting, based on all the information that you just said, is not a violation of any law, statute, or code.
We will have 2 simple rules when it comes to rebuilding this country. Buy American and hire American. Buy American and hire American. Buy American and hire American.
And now it's time for action. President Trump following through on yet another campaign promise. Today, the administration launches its Made in America campaign to highlight and promote products made right here in the United States of America. Alltech is one of the companies that will be showcased today. Lee Styslinger is the chairman and CEO of Alltech and joins us right now. Lee, I guess these are words you welcome. How could the president help you not only here at home but overseas?
Well, first, beginning with the focus that the president has on not only American companies and Made in America, but the American workforce. This is really celebrating the American worker and workers throughout this country who succeed not only day in and day out in meeting and exceeding customer expectations, doing that in local markets, state markets, and companies like ourselves that do that globally in over 100 countries around the world.
Located in Birmingham since when? When did you guys really start getting a foothold?
Founded in 1929, so this is our 88th anniversary.
What's it going to mean to you to be at the White House today?
Oh, it's incredible. I've had the opportunity to work on the President's Manufacturing Council, currently working with the President on a number of policy issues, principally workforce policy, deregulation, and infrastructure. So this is a continuation of the focus by the President, his cabinet, and the entire administration on making sure that we do everything we can to celebrate, recognize, and grow jobs in America.
You heard Jamie Timon's rant over the frustration that he expressed over the last Friday and all throughout the weekend. Do you feel the same way, that Washington won't get out of your way?
Well, Jamie's a good friend, and clearly his points were addressing a lot of frustration that's out there among not only CEOs throughout the country, but also the American workers throughout the country. I, by definition, am an optimist and optimistic that there is a lot of positive momentum. None of this is easy. These are complicated policy issues that we're working on, right? From tax to health care to trade, all very complicated, but everyone's pulling together below all the noise on that you hear so much on distractions, Russia and other things.
Yeah, Russia doesn't help Alltech. I know that. Real quick, corporate tax cut, would that immediately impact your bottom line?
Corporate tax cuts are by definition good for all American businesses because you're able to reinvest back in the businesses and hire more people and better support your customers.
And I just hope both sides can get on board with tax reduction and infrastructure spending, because it helps everybody. Lee Styslinger, congratulations on your career, your company. Good luck today.
Thank you.
All right, still ahead. President Trump's attorney calling out the mainstream media, telling them they've got the Donald Trump Jr. Meeting all wrong.
The meeting and what took place at the meeting, based on all the information that you just said, is not a violation of any law, statute, or code.
Wow. Will that be enough to stop the assaults, the verbal ones? We're going to debate that next.
Time now for some quick Monday morning headlines. First up, President Trump's travel ban once again under attack and heading back to the U.S. Supreme Court. Hawaii has until tomorrow to respond to the motion filed by the White House. The Department of Justice slamming a court for overstepping by expanding the list of family members of U.S. citizens allowed into the United States to include grandparents and others. And hundreds of people turning out to pay their respects at a vigil for 4 missing men found murdered. The tragic event shaking a Pennsylvania community to its core. 2 cousins are now facing murder charges after investigators found the bodies on their family farm. That's some of the news. Ainsley, over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Steve. President Trump's attorney calling out the mainstream media, pointing out why their attacks on Donald Trump Jr. are all wrong. Listen.
Donald Trump Jr. said he would cooperate with anybody. He made that very clear when he was on air talking about it. And again, as the lawyer, Chuck, when you have to understand this, as the lawyer, I look at what would you say, doesn't this trigger an investigation? If there's an investigation, you're looking at what law may have been violated here. And again, the meeting and what took place at the meeting, based on all the information that you just said, is not a violation of any law, statute, or code.
But is that enough to stop the media assaults? Here to debate, Bold Global founder Carrie Sheffield and Democratic strategist Sasha Burns. Thank you both for being with us. So he was on, Jay Sekulow was on 5 of the Sunday shows over the weekend. Many of them were kind of tough on him. He says, though, that this meeting that Donald Trump Jr. took was legal and a morally sound decision. So is that enough to stand down the media? Carrie, I'll start with you.
Well, there's this thing called the Constitution we have in this country. And in the Constitution, it says due process. What that means is that you are innocent until proven guilty. So the media and all these liberals who are rushing to judgment are ignoring the Constitution. They love to say that President Trump is a threat to the Constitution. Hello, people. Look at the nose on your face. This is what you are doing. You are ignoring the process of law. The fact of the matter is, this meeting was absolutely illegal, and the president is absolutely right.
Sasha, what's your response to that?
If they don't lie, there won't be media stories about how they lie.
You think he's lying?
Well, yeah. He just said to Sean Hannity last week that he had disclosed everything. Sean Hannity said, have you met with any other Russians? He said, no. No, there's nothing more. Guess what he did? And the Russian that came out was a former Soviet intelligence officer. I mean, when did it become a partisan issue that a foreign adversary interfered in our elections? That's a really big deal. Well, and Don Jr. was part of it. If it's not illegal, is that okay?
When did it become a partisan issue that you are guilty until proven innocent? That is the exact opposite of what the Constitution says.
Was he guilty of lying? Yes. Right? You know he's lied.
Is that illegal? This was, the fog of the campaign. Things are happening a million miles an hour. Nobody expected President Trump to get to where he was. He himself was shocked and surprised. When you have the fog of war, this is what happens.
Sasha, it didn't affect the election, though, that meeting, and it was legal. He didn't do anything criminal by meeting with this Russian lawyer.
So does that mean you think it's okay? I mean, whether or not it's legal, the facts of the story are that Don Jr. was approached saying this is part of the Russian government's efforts to help your father. A Russian government lawyer is coming over to give you dirt on HRC. Okay,
what about the Democratic Party looking for dirt on Donald Trump with the Ukrainians? It's the exact same thing.
I hear what you're saying, but no, it's not at all the same.
Absolutely,
it's not at all the same. And you know what? We didn't lie about it. I mean, this isn't a conspiracy by the liberals. The fact is, he did this,
so, Sasha,
and he lied about it. Here's where it's going to become. Sorry, Ainsley.
That's okay.
Where it's going to be a problem is, yeah, lying to the media, lying to the American people is not illegal, but the rats are fleeing the ship. We've got Manafort testifying this week in a public hearing. You start putting those guys against each other, they better be very careful about perjury.
Look, this was not a campaign of polished professional career politicians. I'll give you that. This is true. I mean, there are lots of things that President Trump said that upset me, but at the end of the day, he was duly elected under the Constitution. So if you want to ignore the Constitution, that is morally wrong. And I'm going to call out every liberal and every Democrat and every person in the media who is ignoring our Constitution, which says due process, innocent until proven guilty.
Would you mean with a Russian operative? You wouldn't. I mean, you wouldn't. It's not about polish.
I think every Democratic operative is
professional.
All right,
you're
fair and honest, the fair debate. Okay, thank you for both sides. We appreciate that. Good to see you, Carrie and Sasha. Coming up, a huge day in the case of Charlie Gard. An American doctor is going to examine him in just a few hours, but a family friend says it should never have gotten to this point. You're going to hear from them just ahead. And first, she said it was the Republicans' fault, and now Jane Sanders is blaming the FBI's investigation on sexism.
All right. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about this. If you were watching television over the weekend, you saw that at Donald Trump's home course out in Bedminster, New Jersey, they hosted the Ladies U.S. Open. It was terrific. I'd never seen the golf course like that. It's a beautiful facility. There is the president at his viewing station over the 15th green.
And when the winner won, he was waving down to her. I don't know if that was the shot, but I was watching it last night, and he was waving down to her. She was walking up.
That's right. Yeah, he tweeted that over the weekend. So now one thing to do, and the Trump people that was so passionate to propel him into the White House were kind of enjoying the fact that their man won the White House and watched all these protesters, especially here in New York City, rise up. Now they decided to match their yelling with their support. And here's an example over the weekend.
Look, I'm here because Trump's evil. I'm here because his entire, it's just not good enough. He's putting people in danger.
We have to organize because our lives are at stake.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, the Trump regime has got to go.
I'd like to see him drag kicking and screaming out of the White House.
Okay, so those are some of the protests that were featured in mainstream media over the weekend, talking about how there are protests all across the country. Todd Pyro from our program actually went out to one of the roads adjacent to the Bedminster golf course to talk to people you don't see on the other channel. And these are the people who actually love Donald Trump. Watch this.
What do you think of those protesting the U.S. Women's Open there at the Trump golf course?
I think it's ridiculous. I'm tired of the protests.
It's unrealistic because he is our president. And with all due respect, if you go against the president, you go against the country.
He's our president now. I didn't like their president, but I wasn't out there saying he should be dumped.
They don't like our president. Let them at least respect him.
What do you think about the protests here during U.S. Women's Open weekend?
It's been at the golf course when he was not president, so I see no problem with it.
He owns a golf course. What's he supposed to do? Just, give up on everything that he's done?
As a local, I think the president being here, along with the golf tournament, is going to be wonderful for our economy.
USA! USA! USA!
How do you think the mainstream media is going to cover this rally?
They're not. They won't. They'll get a whole group photo of the opposition, and they'll say anti-Trump protesters were in full force, and they'll just show a couple of us. That's what happened the last time we were here.
And she was exactly right. It pretty much played out like that on the other channels.
They chose that location before he was president.
2012.
That's right. You heard a lot of the people honking. It's because one of the ladies had a sign that said, or one of the men, it said, honk if you like our president. So lots of people were out there honking.
All right, Jillian, we don't have that type of signal. We just know intuitively everybody likes you, but no one has to honk their horn.
No honking horns
No,
this morning?
no.
Okay, we can deal with that. It's Monday. I mean, you don't want to hear that, right? Good morning to you. Today, a U.S. physician is examining little Charlie Gard, the terminally ill British infant at the center of an emotional worldwide debate. The doctor from New York claims there's a chance that his experimental treatment could reverse the 11-month-old brain damage caused by a rare genetic disorder. But a family friend is slamming authorities for letting the case get to this point. Take a listen.
Not ordinary people, but wealthy parents. They could have gone into a private hospital, say in London. Baby Charlie wouldn't have become what is essentially, and these are my words, a prisoner of the state.
The UK's High Court will decide next week whether Charlie can have the treatment or if he will be taken off life support. Bernie Sanders' wife now blaming the FBI probe into her alleged bank fraud on sexism. Jane Sanders crying foul on the man who originally filed a complaint, sparking the investigation, telling the Boston Globe, quote, "I find it incredibly sexist that basically he's going after my husband by destroying my reputation, and that's not okay." Sanders is accused of illegally obtaining a loan as president of a now former college she once oversaw. An Army vet working at Home Depot tried using his military training to stop a trio of shoplifters. The intervention costing Jim Tinney his job, one he says he needs.
I'm 70 years old. I need to work, and I needed that job.
The former employee throwing a paint roller extension at the suspect's feet as they tried getting away with thousands of dollars worth of tools. Home Depot defending its decision, saying it's a store policy not to confront shoplifters. As Kid Rock mulls over a run for Senate, Caitlyn Jenner might be the next celebrity who wants in on the action. The Olympic gold medalist and reality TV star telling a New York radio program she's thinking about running for the U.S. Senate, representing California as a Republican.
I have considered it. I like the political side of it. The political side of it has always been very intriguing to me. Over the next 6 months or so, I got to find out where I can do a better job.
Jenner's opportunity would come when Democrat Dianne Feinstein is up for re-election in 2018. The 84-year-old has not said yet if she will run again. That's a look at your headlines on this Monday, guys. I wonder who's going to be next. It seems like every week at this point.
A lot of celebrities with built-in marquee appeal
Absolutely.
are thinking about it. All right, Jillian, thank you.
Thanks, Jillian.
All right, it is 21 minutes before the top of the hour. It is a Monday in the summer, and Janice Dean is out on the streets where it's going to be hot.
It's going to be hot. I propose that maybe sometime this week we go to the beach and do Fox and Friends live from the beach. The Jersey Shore, maybe? All right, let's work on it. Let's take a look at the maps real quick, because we have a beautiful day across portions of the Northeast. We do have the potential for showers and thunderstorms later on today, beginning with the upper Midwest towards the Great Lakes and then the Northeast, so we're going to watch for that. But there's the radar. We're also going to look for the potential of showers and thunderstorms along the Gulf Coast as well as Florida. And then that severe risk that I'm talking about, again, for parts of the Great Lakes, the upper Midwest, we could see some large hail. We could see some damaging winds. Don't think we're going to see tornadoes, but also with that, the threat for heavy flooding, so flooding rainfall as well. And then we saw that video out of Arizona with the flooding rainfall. It is monsoon season there, a seasonal shift in winds, and that's why we're going to see the potential for showers and thunderstorms across the Southwest as well. There's a look at your daytime highs. Hot, hot, hot. It's summertime. Back inside, Steve, Ainsley, and Brian.
A lot of the country's in the red zone. All right.
Got it.
Thank you very much.
It's hot, hot, hot.
That's exactly how it is.
The whole map is red.
Yeah, it is. It's summer, though. If it wasn't hot, we'd be in trouble.
This is true. All right, the mainstream media is obsessing over polls saying the president's approval rating is at an all-time low. But what about those who voted for him? What do they think? We're going to take a closer look and tell you what mainstream media might not.
And we know many college students love socialism, but do those college students actually know what socialism is?
How would you define socialism?
I mean, honestly, that definition gets thrown around a lot. I'm not exactly sure.
Glad you're up. Now time for some quick headlines. Meanwhile, Game of Thrones fans very excited for the premiere of season number 7. That happened last night, but HBO was not prepared. But both their website and streaming service crashed. Fans not happy about it, taking out their frustration on Twitter. One user saying, quote, HBO Go is the first death of season 7. And ice cream lovers have a meltdown of their own when the McDonald's app stops working on National Ice Cream Day. The chain promised free cones through a promotion on their app, but some customers reported major issues. McDonald's later saying anyone with a problem could just ask a cashier for a cone. All right, for something more important, it's hard to imagine, Steve.
I don't know. An ice cream cone on National Ice Cream Day is pretty important, Brian. Meanwhile, the pulse of the people, the mainstream media is obsessing over a new poll from ABC News and the Washington Post suggesting, as you can see right there, President Trump's approval rating had dropped to 36%. The president taking to Twitter to call them out for getting the polls wrong in the past, tweeting the ABC Washington Post poll, even though almost 40% is not bad at this time, the president tweets, was just about the most inaccurate poll around election time. But take a look at this recent poll from the Wall Street Journal showing the president is sustaining the base that voted for him back in November. So what's the real story? Here to break it all down, we got former pollster for the pro-Trump super PAC and president of McLaughlin and Associates, Jim McLaughlin. Jim, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
Good to have you. All right, I'm sure you saw that Washington Post ABC poll. I know the other networks are all talking about, look, he's in the dumper. People are turning their backs on him. You've got a problem with the methodology, don't you?
I've got a real problem with it because the problem is only 23% of their sample were Republicans. And on Election Day, it was 33%. So they're minus about 10 points of where Republicans should be. The interesting part is they have Democrats pretty much where they should be. Mm-hmm. On Election Day, they were 36%. And in their poll, they have it at 35%. So if you factor in that the Republicans really probably should be about 10% more, that that puts his job approval rating in the mid-40s, which is virtually what it was when he won an overwhelmingly electoral college victory on Election Day.
And then when you take a look at the counties that he won on Election Day, it looks like he is at 50%.
Yep.
50% approve, a little less than that disapprove. What does that tell you?
What it tells you, and these were the counties that he won. And remember, he won 306 electoral college votes. It was an overwhelming electoral college victory. He's still maintaining it. We see it in our surveys, by the way. Trump voters, his job approval rating is well over 90% with those voters. What's going to be a real key is over the next couple weeks for him to expand upon that base. If they can get health care reform, I think they're doing a great job out of the White House this week. We're basically making it a jobs week, buy America.
Made in America.
Exactly right. And getting back on message, because that's what elected him.
But you know, you've got a remote control at your house. Yep. You look at the other channels, all they talk about is Russia, Russia, Russia.
Yep.
And yet, when you talk to the average person, is anybody saying that's important to them?
It's amazing. I just got finished over the last month. I did a ton of focus groups. And the Russia issue does not come up with average Americans, especially Trump voters, till I bring it up. What they're talking about is jobs. They're talking about the economy. They're talking about health care reform, immigration reform. That's what they want to talk about. And I think, you know, one of the things you want to look at is look what happened in the special elections. The Republicans were talking about the issues that affected the American people, and that's why they won those elections.
Sure.
And one of the things I like about the president is he's not letting them get him off track.
He's sticking to his agenda. He's talking about jobs. He's talking about trying to do something about taxes.
He's talking about the things that elected him. And that's where one of the things they don't get it. You know, here's this, you know, and a lot of people call him a blue-collar billionaire, because what he's literally done is, even though he's a billionaire and the Democrats play that class warfare card, they play the resistance card, he connects with that middle-class working Americans. And while the Democrats are running around talking Russia, 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 he's talking about the things that affect them in their daily lives.
You know what? The thing I hear, Jim, from the most people out on the street is, why don't they just let him do his job?
Exactly right. And that obstructionism, and you're not going to win elections on resist. And again, look to those special elections, because the Democrats have not done well there.
Interesting stuff. All right. Jim McLaughlin, former pollster for the pro-Trump Super PAC. Thank you very much for joining us live today.
Thank you, Steve.
Interesting stuff. All right. We've got a big Monday telecast for you. Congressman Sean Duffy and his wife Rachel, plus Stuart Varney and David Bossie, all here live. And more young people say they love socialism, but do they really know what socialists are?
How would you define socialism?
I mean, honestly, that definition gets thrown around a lot. I'm not exactly sure.
To be quite honest, I don't know.
Benefit our country.
I guess they weren't in class that day. Cabot Phillips with Campus Reform.
Last year, some millennials were feeling the burn in hopes of getting everything for free under socialism, but it seems some students can't even define what socialism is.
How would you define socialism?
I mean, honestly, that definition gets thrown around a lot.
How would you view what socialism is, though?
To be quite honest, I don't know.
It could really benefit our country in the future.
I think it's a good idea. Trying to spread the wealth is definitely a good thing in America, and it's definitely a thing that's needed.
So, why are millennials supporting something without even knowing what it means?
Joining us now is the media director for campusreform.org, Cabot Phillips. Good to see you again, Cabot.
Good to be here.
These are always so funny to watch. But do you go out there all day long and pick out the people who don't know what it is, or was this it was easy to find?
This is an hour or two of filming where every single person that comes up.
Most people didn't know what it was.
It's the exact same thing time after time, and it is funny, but at the same time, it's scary.
Yeah.
Millennials, yes, they seem misinformed, and they're also the largest voting bloc in America now. And so we've got millions of people who are going to be heading to the polls with a warped view. And the thing we kept hearing about what socialism is, it is social justice for all. It's equality for all. And the only thing that's equal for everyone is the misery under socialism.
Right. Well, apparently they skipped class that day. Here's something that's troubling. YouGov did a poll. 45% of young Americans would be likely to vote for an openly socialist presidential candidate. This just goes back to so many people loved Bernie Sanders in the last cycle, even though they like the idea of free everything. They just didn't know what socialism really was.
In that same poll, 53% of students admitted that they think socialism would work better for our country than a free market system. And where is this coming from? I think it's two main areas. First, it's President Obama. For the last 8 years, he stoked class warfare. He told people my age, look, if you can't get a job, it's rich people's problem. It's not your fault. It's the 1%.
Fairness.
He created a mainstream idea of spread the wealth. And second off, it is in the classroom. He said these students must have missed class. That's why they think this. No, they're going to class, and that's why they're learning this. They're learning in class that socialism is something that it's a revisionist form of history. They don't teach what socialism has wrought throughout the world. They teach other things.
You talked to one person, though, that did come from a socialist country, right? Or his parents did?
We talked to one student who was an ardent supporter of free markets, and he came out and said, I don't know why people want socialism. My family, I'm a first-generation American. My family came to get away from socialism. Why do we want to bring it here?
But you know why? Because they're explaining that capitalism has no net. This is the first time in their lives there's no script. So there's no guarantee of success, shelter, food, in the purity. So it's game on. A lot of them don't want to compete. That's what capitalism demands. You have to compete.
It's equal outcome versus equal opportunity. And sadly, most people my age are being taught that competition is scary because there's a chance of losing. But we need to make sure everyone has an equal chance of opportunity, not outcome.
Pursuit of happiness, not guaranteed.
Must be pursued.
And Kevin, before you go, for the people who love socialism but don't know what socialism is, before you go, what is it?
I would define it as the government collectivizing means of production and taking hold of the economy and deciding who the winners and losers are. And, we'll have a class here. We'll also have a fundraiser. Send these students to Venezuela for spring break next year.
Cabot's new name.
The winners of the government.
Yeah, exactly.
Cabot's new name is Webster. Thank you for that definition.
That was great.
Still ahead. Everywhere you turn, it's Russia, Russia, Russia. But our next guest says fake news is a far bigger threat to Western civilization than the Kremlin. Radio talk show host Dennis Prager is going to join us live.